So much talk about the shutdown now, but so little to show for it. House Republicans proposing a stopgap measure now to keep some parts of the U.S. government open, but Senate Democrats say any such deal would be DOA, dead on arrival. And in the meantime, all sides are taking considerable heat for the shutdown. Look at this. A Fox News poll finds more voters have negative views of Democrats and Republicans and the Tea Party movement than positive, but the disapproval rating for Republicans, well, the largest by 24 points. Deneen Borelli is a Fox News contributor, director of outreach for FreedomWorks. Richard Goodstein is a Democratic political consultant, former advisor to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Nice to have you both here.
Hi, Greg.
Richard, let me start with you, because, Richard, you know, the president has embraced this rather novel tactic. I refuse to talk.
Right.
Is that a risky strategy because it could, Richard, reinforce a damaging impression that, you know, this is a president who is devoid of leadership skills, rolling up his sleeves and working with other people? And the longer this goes on, Richard, the more indelible that impression may become.
Well, that's an interesting theory. It's confounded by the polls and in some other factors. For example, the poll that you just cited shows that the public actually does not think that the president is kind of misbehaving in quite the same way.
That could change pretty quickly. You know
politics.
Well,
of course. Well, but we also know that by 3-1, when asked the question, do you think it's worth defunding Obamacare and therefore getting the government to shut down, by 3-1, people say, no, we do not want that as the price to pay. And let me just twist it, Greg. Imagine that Nancy Pelosi was the speaker and the Republicans controlled the White House and the Senate, and she said, I want to have a confiscation of all handguns as my price to pay. Now, would you think the Republicans would negotiate against that? Would they say, well, we'll only confiscate a quarter of handguns? Of course not. They would never in a million years have that debate.
The Second Amendment is embedded in the Constitution, has been for the better part of 200 years.
How about abortion?
Obamacare,
How about abortion on demand?
Obamacare is brand new, just started October 1st. So, Deneen, I want to be fair and balanced here. Tough question to you, because the same criticism is being leveled at Speaker John Boehner. He has lost control of the House to Ted Cruz, renegade conservatives, and a strong speaker, a skilled speaker, who had the confidence of his party would not. And, you know, they say he just doesn't have the skills to end this thing. Is that fair criticism?
Well, here's what I think, Greg. I think the Republicans really need to hold the line across the board because what we're witnessing is this harmful shutdown that is harming families, harming hardworking Americans. Obama's ratings have dropped 41%. He's the leader. He's the president. This is all happening under his watch. You have Harry Reid, who won't even bring a vote to the continuing resolution spending bill and also all the other bills that have come up from the House. So clearly it's the Democrats' fault that is holding up our country from moving forward, and this is all under Obama's watch,
now,
and
Richard,
he can do something about it.
Richard, I'm glad you brought up the polling data, because I want to throw one up on the screen here and ask you about it. Because it's true. Republicans normally, traditionally, historically get the blame for all these shutdowns, but look at this. This Fox News poll, when asked who's most responsible for the shutdown, look at that. Boehner and Obama are statistically even in the blame game, 25-24 within the margin of error. 20% think everybody's to blame. So what about that, Richard?
Here's what I would say to that. Imagine we're back in 2010 and you asked a Tea Party candidate for the House, what would you think about going to Washington and paying 800,000 federal workers not to work? They'd say, that's exactly what we're running to avoid, and yet
they would probably
single one
say
of them,
those are non-essential employees. Why the heck do we even employ non-essential employees?
And every single one of those Tea Party people voted today to pay for those people not to work. So the point is, this thing has gotten twisted. Well, that's a debate you need to have with them. My point is, if there's any question about who's winning or who's losing, that vote proves it, because remember, we've gone from defunding Obamacare to delay it a little bit to now the whole debate
it's a train
is
wreck.
Well, hold on. It's all about funding things which the Ryan budget would grossly slash.
Right.
Deneen,
Deneen,
let me get my question in here.
Sure.
When you add in Ted Cruz and Harry Reid, Republicans do get most of the blame for the shutdown by a large margin. Look at this other poll. President Obama's job approval has ticked up 5 points. His disapproval has ticked down 5 points. That's a 10-point swing in President Obama's favor. So amid all of this, advantage Obama, isn't it?
The way I see it, Greg, Americans are tired of big government, and with the Tea Party has been very influential in putting representatives in office to rein in this government that has gone wild. And another thing that Americans don't like, Greg, is the vindictiveness of President Obama. Shutting down the World War II memorial site. Are you kidding me? Our veterans who have come there from volunteer efforts to view the memorial. Individuals should be paying respect to these people on a daily basis, but that's not what we're witnessing from President Obama. He wants to inflict more harm as possible and make it a visual effect because his facts and figures are failing our country. His policies are failing.
You know, we love to take the pulse of the American public, Richard, which is why we do the polling data and love to show them to you and Deneen. Sure. And look at this next one. A substantial majority of Americans, they don't like Obamacare. They want it repealed. A huge majority want it delayed. This poll right here, maybe it worries the president, or it should, as well as Democrats. Look at that, Richard. 52% say the old system is better for their family, whereas 36% embrace this sort of new Obamacare system. I mean, that's not a good start, is it, Richard?
Well, you know, that's confounded by another poll, Greg, which I know you've seen and probably referenced, which is when you ask people how they feel about Obamacare versus the Affordable Care Act, they don't like Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act, they actually like not having to deal with pre-existing conditions and worry about that or being kicked off their plan.
Yeah, because it has that lovely word in it, affordable, which is a misnomer, arguably.
Well, actually, I would argue it's because Obama's name is in it, and that's obviously code.
Health Care Act, according to many.
The painful Health Care Act.
Greg, 1 second. Greg, we've seen CBO and everybody else say that actually the cost curve is bending. People can kind of say the opposite.
The cost curve is projected to go up over the course of 10 years.
The cost curve may bend in New York and California, where artificially the rates were already high. But, Richard, you know, the other 48 states are getting hammered, especially young people.
Right. And the exchanges aren't even working. The exchanges
but I want to hear
ready.
Richard. Let me hear Richard.
Sure.
The polls have been consistent from day one on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, call what you will, that when asked, do they like it or not, people say they don't. But a good chunk of the people who say they don't like it because it's not liberal enough. And if you combine the people who actually are quite comfortable with the Affordable Care Act and the people who think it should be even more liberal, that actually way trumps the number of people that aren't happy with it. So I think it's, again, like anything else. And the final question I would say is, Greg...
It's not even in effect yet, and it's already wreaking havoc on our economy.
Well,
employers are losing weight hours.
That could change as days goes on.
The rates are going up, as Obama promised that they would not. So really, he lied to us.
Gotta go. I'm up against a heartbreak, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Deneen Borelli, Richard Goodstein, good to see you both. Thank you.